Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to part 2 of Day 9 Daily number 696, where we're almost at 700, and we're learning to be a better gamer. Sorry again about the crash in part 1. Hope you didn't mind the two segments being mushed together. And if you did, then that's the way that is. In part 1, we looked at this great Fast Phoenix opening from Zest. C'est magnifique. And I want to switch focus to Rain, where we're going to look at a build where you get a fast Dark Templar, and Robo, and expansion. Like what? That? Wait a minute. So that seems incredibly impossible. So we're going to watch two games where Rain does more or less the same thing. The easiest first concern is, how the fuck do you stay alive? You are a fibber. That is lies and slander. That is yellow journalism that you are saying right now, Day 9. And I allege that it is not. Uh-oh. Is my thing crashing? No, we're good. Fantastic. So we're going to look at a game where Rain deals with a rush. Come into the Rain Cam. Rain Cam's pretty fun. Ultrazim Stronghold is the map. I believe this is game 3? Oh, there, maybe game 4? I don't know, I'm skipping around. On Ultrazim Stronghold, it's a big map. This opening works fine on pretty much any map because a Dark Shrine comes out, I think at the earliest, at around 7 minutes if you're insane, but a little more reasonably around 7:30. And we're going to see a lot of pieces join together to make this work. So, why the Dark Templar? To push the enemy back and to give us breathing room. Once Dark Templar are out, our enemy must account for them in some way. By defending, by getting observers, blah. Why the Robo? Because Robo units are all about what that mid-game is about. But Rain right now has done everything pretty much by the book. Pylon Gateway on 13, Gas on 15, Gas on 15. Scouting quite early. I don't remember the exact timing. It may have been after this second assimilator or something. The important thing is that it's before the cybernetics core. I say that's important. I should pause at 3 minutes for OCD's sake. I say that's important because a probe mines 40 minerals a minute. So if you send your probe out a minute earlier than normal, you're actually losing funds for like a whole nother probe. For every minute that it is off mining. It's quite expensive to scout. When the Protoss vs. Protoss matchup is so fragile too. I mean, Warp Gate means that my units are just teleported to your front gate. You don't have defender's advantage. So these 5 and 10 second differences are extremely pronounced in PvP. So this is good. This build order that I have assured you, that I have oh so assuredly stated, is quite strong and possible. Doesn't need you to not scout. Many extremely good builds do no scouting at all in order to hopefully get a little bit of extra funds. So why is Rain harassing here, of all places? Because he can see the gateway. Boom. He can also see that there's 3 in gas here, which is great, but really he wants to be parking his little bum by the gateway. We can see that Zest doesn't even have the money yet to be able to consider doing something like that. This usual harassment is where you right-click on the minerals and force a probe to move away. So let's journey back to the base of Rain. Let's just state a very obvious and easy concept. If we get a very fast Twilight Council... Oh wait, he cancels this, I'm sorry. First, very fast Mothership Core. We're going to ignore what he sees, blah, 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 because it winds up being the same build. Okay, cool. Here's where I want to go for. So, if we can get our Dark Templar fast enough, and we can withstand the first rush wave, we get DTs out, and we've won. That's the first important statement. Therefore, the first big expenditure that Rain does is Mothership Core and Twilight Council, and then a single Stalker for a little bit of control. That early scouting probe goes somewhere nice. Somewhere hidden. I want to emphasize a lot, ignore the early Stargate. If you're doing this build, just get the Twilight Council fast, get the Mothership Core fast. And then some very simple timing. Second Gate and Dark Shrine right away together. Do we get a second Stalker? Yes. These early game situations, very, very dicey to defend everything. But then that's basically all we're going to do. Probes still being built constantly. You see some of the chrono boosting being saved up, which is generally good measure. We see an extremely aggressive build coming out of Zest. So I want to pause at this moment, right around 6 minutes here. And note, what if our opponent went for a 4-gate? He would be arriving and warping in right about now. I'm talking like an old school 4-gate. Just because it's not common doesn't mean we can ignore it as a possibility. In this circumstance, our Dark Shrine is about a minute away. And because we rushed for a Mothership Core, we have enough for a Nexus Cannon. We can throw up the Nexus Cannon, defend with our meager tiny amount of Stalkers, and then boom, we have Dark Templar. No problem. Easy. So let me back up just a smidge. In other words, this is actually one of the easiest defenses against fast, ultra-fast aggression. But what about some of those second-round aggressions? Well, after we go 2 Stalker, we just immediately go for a Robo Facility, and we're done making units for all time. We are completely finished building units. I don't see Stalkers coming out of here. You see no Stalkers coming out of here. 2 is it. 2 is the money number. And then straight for a expansion Nexus. Except something funky happened. As is kind of commonplace, if you manage to scout in right around the 6-minute mark, a little after, you will often be able to just waltz directly into the dude's main. So ordinarily, Rain would be gearing up to expand right now. But he sees that there's a huge attack coming, and it's time for Rain to have the easiest game of his life. Why do we build 2 warp gates with this build? A very simple reason. We have the ability to warp in 1 DT at his base and 1 DT in our base. Notice how not units there are. There ain't no units. Or I guess you could morph in 2 as well here and be made of balls. Now, here is the other key thing to note. Here's the very magical timing that you're going to see. Okay, here's the Dark Shrine finishing up. Here's the retreat. If you love timing the way I love timing, see these 2 Dark Templar here? See this almost 400 here? And this probe ready to build a Nexus here? You have enough to have started a Nexus already. Rain just scouted rather astutely. And you also might say, well, what if there's no rush going on? Well, don't worry, we're going to do that right after this game. But just so you can appreciate the ease of defending this, Rain waits till the last second, goes for a Nexus Cannon, sends that pair of DTs up into the main base, and I actually think doesn't even try to warp in DTs at home, I want to say. Just builds the extra gateway instead of the extra Nexus, and boom, gets a solid win. I mean, incredibly easy. So let's actually see that again in a little bit more of a Butt balls. Daggummit squirrel poop. Looks like we fixed it. So let me once again say, we've gotten the opportunity to see a very early game from Rain. Or excuse me, a very anti-rush game from Rain, where he did nothing but survive early. How does this DT Robo build function in other circumstances? So once again, 13 gate, 15 double assimilator. After the gateway, just a brief scout right around the main base to check out what's up. Distance pylon to help do spotting against Stargate play. 3 go into all the geysers immediately. It's not the fastest cybernetics core, but it's going to do just fine. We're not rushing for Warp Gate, we're rushing for Dark Templar, damn it. All the chrono boosts go down. Scout right after the cybernetics core. On Alterzim Stronghold, we scouted earlier. But on this map, we can scout a little bit later. It's not a big deal. We have to be slightly careful and extremely self-aware here. We want to get our Twilight Council as fast as possible. We want this probe not to see us. So we're going to chrono boost out the Nexus as fast as humanly possible. Rain gets to the enemy's base and sees also a Stalker, sees also a second gateway, sees also no Zealot, but doesn't matter. This double gate has plenty of aggressive deviation, so Rain's not really out of anything yet. It's easy to want to throw down this Twilight Council as fast as possible up in the corner. This is an importantly dangerous move. It's important that you know if you get rushed hard, you may have to sack this pylon and this Twilight Council. You may have to do that. Not always, but you just might. And then we're going to start to see some very striking similarities. Per usual, the Stalker scouts defensively, the Mothership Core scouts defensively, the probe that was out on the map early scouts defensively. 2 Stalker, and I could swear something else comes up. Goodness, I was so sure something else was gonna go down. What could it be? Second Gateway and the Dark Shrine go down at about the same time. There it is. Why a 3rd Stalker in this case? Because it looks kind of like we're up against something aggressive. I personally would probably be inclined to cancel that because I don't really see the huge purpose in having that at this point in time. What I think is, here's another very nice little move. You can wait for this gateway to become extremely close to finishing this Stalker and just canceling it. Like moving out like this. Are you rushing me? No. And cancel. Totally fine. Everything else that we're seeing out of Rain, exactly the same. Robo facility at 6 minutes. There's another timing that we get to talk about very simply. What if my opponent is also going for Dark Templar? What if he's just doing the same damn thing as me? This is one circumstance in which an additional Stalker is nice. We're starting to see the movement of these Stalkers change. Stalkers at the front. Or excuse me, Stalkers in the main to deal with air units. We're also seeing a very fast warp in of a sentry. And per usual, yeah, look at that. Expansion coming on up. What's significant about this sentry coming up? Rain is not going all in on these DTs by any means. He is not rushing to have lots of Dark Templar there. He's actually going to get a Dark Templar. So here's the Nexus. Here's the Dark Templar. Now here's a very simple timing. Simplest timing in the world. When can our opponent have Dark Templar? When we have Dark Templar. Think about it. They call me Smart 9. Okay. The earliest he can have DTs is now. So suddenly we see these Stalkers that were in the main Make a wall at the front. Absolutely critical maneuver. Observer rallied to the front. And our DT moves in. Purely a space control move. We see that Zest, who went for a rather swift blink, now has to make sure he doesn't lose to a rather swift DT. Smart 9. So cool. He completely killed it off. We're not worried at all because look at this. We don't have a swollen number of Stalkers. Stalkers with Blink are only really useful in the early game and have limited utility later on. We didn't waste any time with that. Look at this sucker. Boom! An Immortal, baby! If this guy wants to go 4-gate Blink all in, he dies because we have DTs. If he wants to go 3-gate with Observer and then 4-gate Blink all in, we've already gotten our Immortal production going, so we're going to be in good shape. And this is where I'm actually going to pull back to the global viewpoint and talk about what both players do in this game, because I just think it's a very sexy little match. So I think that Zest's side of things, we'll just say that he does some smart stuff. Both players do something that I adore so much, which is fast +1 attack. Getting those ground weapon upgrades up swiftly as can be. Rain says, oh wait a minute, dude, you're expanding. Well, I mean, if you're expanding, then I'm just going to tech. I'm just going to go for a Forge. I'm going to go for Charge. I'm going to go for Templar. I'm going to make sure, I mean, +1 attack is really the most important upgrade that you can get. Chrono Boost on probes until you have 16, or actually just 44 total. 22 at each base. Zest does some very nice moves. For a player who's gone Stalker, rushing for a... Where is it? Where did he build it? Oh, here it is. Rushing for a Robo Bay is great. You buy time to not just get your Colossus count big, but you start as early as possible, and you don't desperately need charge early. The Blink Stalker count at 4. Why 4? What's so special about 4? 4 is the one-shot number. 4 is the number of Stalkers you need to one-shot probes. Excellent. Rain, Chrono Boosting out, lots of Immortals, very important, very good unit, and yeah, also gets up his Robo Bay. I'm going to do the most cursory explanation of an important concept ever. There are times in which you really want to be going for Immortal Zealot Archon, or I should say Immortal Archon is the core mix with some Zealots later on. Other times, you really kind of want to be going Colossus and Robo. Rather than spend any time doing that in any detail, because that's kind of a bigger question of the matchup, we'll just note that Rain has the flexibility to do whichever one he so pleases. He already has the Twilight Council to get Charge. He already has the Robo to get the Robo Bay. Great. I would say that this is a very even game. I think Rain's opening is an incredibly safe one. Look at that. Absolute dead even in terms of the worker count until Zest built 2 more, the bastard. Zest also going double Robo. Love it, love it, love it. Really consistently strong play style. Rain is doing the, I'm not really wanting to commit tremendously to Colossus. I just want to have some Colossus because I don't feel like I have time to get Tempest up and all that jazz. And this is, I think, a time that can feel fairly constrained, but I actually think it's a very beautiful time in the matchup. When do you expand? After you've stopped your probe production, again, right around 44, or a little bit more. Just go take your extra expansion. And there's some big deviations here. My personal preference is to always deviate to the Templar sooner. And then to get more gateways. And to stay low on Robo. Or I should say stay lower on Colossus. I think it's a lot easier to go for double Robo. Like, much, 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 much easier. If you ever have a long day, just go to Robo, man. It's not going to be a problem. So we kind of have ourselves a really static game, quite honestly. But one of the esteemed and famed maneuvers of the matchup, if you have the more mobile army, and a really easy way to say, do I have the more mobile army? Just look at the Colossus count. If he has more Colossus, you're the more mobile army. Kind of because you have to. You can't be like, no, I'm really going to beat his Colossus with my fewer Colossus. No, you're not. You're never going to do that. Ever. And that is the full analysis. A larger number of Colossus just roasts a smaller number of Colossus in a very not close sort of way. So if you ever think you have the more mobile army, mobility is defined by speed of your core army, as well as the number of warp gates that you have. You just take this initiative, move straight on up, and then use the warp prism and that superior gateway count to deal some damage. So I know that there's some blinking stuff happening on the minimap. We're ignoring that for now, because we'll rewind, because it's a very zesty move. But here is one of my favorite things. The warp prism stays pretty tight with the army the whole time, for two reasons. If Zest's army is here, Rain can make a judgment call. Do I take this warp prism into the main? Or do I just walk the warp prism and warp in zealots on top of the Colossus? So look at this, Rain! He just gets a free base. That is a third option. Tries to get some free kills and then says, nah, I'm gone. Look at that, doesn't even do the warp in the main. Ah, yes! Oh, let me tell you something that breaks my heart. When I see one of my friends get a warp prism, and he's like, dude, I'm going to do the two-pronged attack. And his opponent, as it turns out, isn't on a third base. Is two-basing. Opponent is two-basing. There's no ability to warp in and harass in the main. The guy's army is just sitting right there. But I see my friend send in the warp prism and lose anyways. It hurts me. It hurts my soul. So what I love about Rain is that, again, he left it open for the two tactics. If there's a third there, he can drop on the army, or he can warp in the main and engage the army and sort of retreat away from the army, dealing damage in the main. Zest, I think, did one of the smartest moves of all and just said, dude, take my third. It's not a big deal. So a very nice position to be in is Rain. Has done some very nice damage here and is now pulling back. Going to investigate to see if he can do any damage. Just glaze by the front a little bit. Continue to stay in attendance. Where's the warp prism again? It's here. All the way at the left side, just in case. Now, while all this was going on, there's a beautiful tactic that we see out of Zest. This whole army from Rain is in itself in a ridiculous predicament. Rain is saying, oh my god, dude, you're getting the Colossus lead hard. 6-3 right now. Rain's got to do a move. And as I said before, one of my favorite moves is this warp prism play. Remember those 4 hero stalkers? Well, Zest is sending those 4 hero stalkers to be his warp prism force. And he doesn't really have much going on here. He's just doing some very basic, simple, clean harassment of the third. And I mean, this is just a big spectacle. This is a big effort to kill this off with this whole army. And we see Zest microing his little buns off, letting this die, as he has a superior Colossus count. Letting it die. And doing his best to keep Rain as harassed as possible. So Zest is basically saying, alright, cool, you can try to kill my stuff off, but you still haven't solved your problem. You're still behind in Colossus count, you still have the weaker, bigger army. And then Zest does things that I love. As his Colossus count gets to around 8, starts chrono boosting Immortals. Those will provide a vital edge in the Colossus versus Colossus battle, and it provides vital gas to build some Archons. And Zest still harassing like a jerk. I think he's killed off like a stupid amount of probes. I mean, 8. To have left this fully inoperable is pretty sick in itself. And I think Rain, in a corner, does the best move that he really can do, which is to get up double Stargate to go double Tempest. To hopefully have those Tempests out in time to battle this just death army. It's a death army of death, actually. Zestri expands himself. Double Tempest. Seems pretty good. Very, very cool little game between these two players. And if we look at the unit count, it's like 8 Colossus versus a largely Zealot army from Rain. Because Rain was trying to apply pressure. Not a lot of probes for Zest because he is again mined out. And this is sort of one of the... This is like the conclusion to all these funky decisions. Does Rain actually have enough Tempest? Does Rain actually have enough Immortals? I think one of the big hindrances for Rain is that he does not have the superior Immortal count. I think that's what actually is killing him in this game. And his Archon count's a little low. I mean, these gases should have been up earlier. And I think Zest just made a fantastic choice. It was a pretty close battle, as you can see. But the low Immortal count, the low Archon count kind of hurt Rain in the end. I just thought, very cool opening, very elegant play. Zest floods with Zealot Archon, very easy finisher. And he gets him. I think Rain doesn't give up yet. Never give up, never surrender, Rain. Okay, cool. Well, I'm going to go ahead and step away to a brief break, because when we come back, we're going to watch another game, and likely this one will cut my sound out as well, and we'll just see another cool opening and take some questions. Pow. Oops, wrong button. Pow. And we're on a break. Oh. Mm-hmm.